Hello and welcome to another special episode of One More Thing, where I am joined by a very, very talented musician. He's representing the US drum and bass. He's represented Hospital Records, representing Goldfat. It's Winslow. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing so good, man. It's been a great time, a great year. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So this is going to run like kind of mid-August, but right now, mid-July, you're actually in the UK and you've been over here for a couple of weeks, right?
Right, yeah. I came over for a hospitality on the beach, Croatia, which was amazing, then flew straight back here and I've been just kind of hanging about in and out of the hospital studios, being a tourist as usual, all the
Ah,
all the normal stuff.
go on. What's the most touristy thing you've done when you've come over here?
Ooh, man. I think just like seeing what Big Ben, London Eye, all of like that central touristy like London area. I still haven't seen what Buckingham Palace yet, so a couple days left. Need to go do that.
Go on, cool. It's the only time that British people ever actually get to see these things ourselves, really, is when friends from overseas come over. They're right on people's doorsteps and stuff. I
Right.
mean, this isn't your first trip over here, though. How many times have you come over? It must be the third or fourth summer.
Yes, the third. The first time was 2021 for Hospitality Weekend in the Woods, where I literally got off work, flew straight here on like a Friday, played on like a Sunday morning, however like the time, and then headed straight back the next day. Which was not that was rough. But then the next summer, like no, last summer, I did kind of the same thing where I went to hospitality on the beach and spent like just a month here trying to get as much done and be productive, still laying on the couch in a different place though in the world. But like yeah, so it's third time, it's nice. It's like it's more regular. Just I feel like a Londoner now a little bit. Get my British card going.
Go on. I actually got to thank you because that was the last time I saw you. Was the first time you came over for that like kind of blink and miss trip to Hospitality in the Woods.
Yeah.
When you interviewed me, and I
Yeah,
had
that
no
was
clue that that was going to
fun.
happen. I need to thank you for never using any of that content because I was at least one bottle of wine deep and I did not. I'm not very
Oh
comfortable on the
no.
other side of the microphone at all.
No, it's funny. Like I remember that too. It was just one of those like I guess like people know me for kind of just like spur of the moment ideas and like the hospital team's been really cool about, hey, he'll talk on a mic and I'll still be nervous or whatever, but it's like it was after like playing my set and things like that. So it's like nothing can kill like this high I'm on right now. Let's just go be stupid with a microphone and interview like whoever walks around. Sorry you
Yeah.
had to be a victim on that.
No, that's fine. I was more than happy to be a victim when I knew that none of it was being
Yeah,
used.
yeah.
It's a strange feeling, isn't it? Because I mean, you kind of, I'm not that comfortable holding a
Mhm.
microphone, but I think when you've got a microphone, it's you use it as a prop, then, don't you? And it's not you doing the
Yeah.
interview, and you kind of jump into like this kind of strange, different, alternate version of you when you're interviewing, don't you?
Yeah, like I feel like it's not like it's nice to hear you say that because I've always felt that way. It's like it's not like my everyday. It's like okay, it's my character moment. Like okay, I'm going to start interviewing people. I need to I don't know, not just literally talk down like this, but like put some energy and make it exciting. And like one, I guess character I've always had is like if someone else feels awkward, I don't want to also feel awkward, so I'm just going to like jump out of that. But it's like as soon as I'm done, I'm like, all right, let's take a little break. But it's like
Yeah.
fun while it's happening.
Yeah, it's really strange. Like my kids watch me doing interviews and watch like drum and bass arena awards and stuff like that, and they're like, "Dad, you're acting really, really weird." It's like I don't
Yeah.
act like I do on camera. If I did, I don't think I'd have any friends or family left because I'm just
Yeah.
wobbling
I
around and being like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah," all of the time. Like it's way, way, way too intense, really.
I totally get that. Yeah.
Awesome.
But
But you've got a really, really special single landing on
yeah.
hospital now, haven't you? Class dismissed.
Yeah, yeah. It's I did not see this one happening because I mean, as like people will know now, it's like a 142, and who expects that from me, like the lead single. And there's the
Yeah.
VIP, which is more my speed, like the I guess the darker side of drum and bass for me at least. And yeah, it was started out as one of those like, oh, it's the weekend. I want to work on something. I want to make something different. Let's see what happens. Somehow that came together. And in my usual, let's see what they think about it, but not draw any attention, I like stuck it in this folder like we have with like my A&R team and everybody at the hospital. And I sent them like my normal batch of tunes, was like what you expect, like soulful, melodic, drum and bass. But then there's this other thing I didn't tell them about. And then I get an email like a month later, like, hey, what's this thing? Like we're everyone's in the office is feeling it. Like, do you want to actually put it out? And I was like, well, since you're asking, yeah, let's do it. It's like, I don't like, why not? I made it,
Hey,
it's me. Why not? You know?
go on. That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. And it's usually the curveballs. I don't know if you
Mhm.
found this with previous tracks that you put out as well. It's usually the curveballs which get people's attention or get the reaction. And especially from a label as well, when they're looking for something different all the time. I know interviewing like, any label boss, they want their artists to push themselves and do something
Yeah.
different. Have you found that as well, that it's the ones that you least expect or the curveballs that usually get the most attention in that type of way?
Definitely. It's like what was like the first one, breaking news, like with the whole like I don't tell anybody anything or like the ideas until like it's the last minute. And then there was the whole like me as news presenter and all this goofy stuff. And then Track was on it and then he was himself as well. And it's like there's this whole idea I've cooked up, and then at the last second I'm like, here we go. And it's almost like it's like a bait and switch, but it's not because I'm not switching it. It's just like,
Yeah.
but I don't expect it to do like, have the reaction it does, but it does. And I'm like, okay, let's just keep doing this thing, be goofy in the land of seriousness and black t-shirts, I guess.
Yeah. I think we're seeing more and more of that. I think
Hmm.
the time for being serious is definitely over, really, because life
Yeah.
itself is far too serious. To also then have a pastime which is serious doesn't make any sense. I think we're in
Yeah.
a jollier new era, if you like, really, in that way. Or we're not taking ourselves quite as seriously as we used to.
Hmm. Yeah, totally. Like, I don't know, just like I get it for a point of view. Like I've always taken the music serious, everything I create, like the attention to detail, going like, I don't know, whatever, saying the extra mile, 110%, all that. But it's like it has to still have that lighthearted feeling, or just like what's on the way I present it is kind of like for classes missed, for example, it's like all this stuff is like me as a teacher and that like alter ego, which is actually like an alter ego like my kids know me for, like my students. And but then the music is like dark and serious and like, so there's just a weird like juxtaposition of, okay, I'm listening to this really serious thing, but here he is being goofy on the internet and somehow it works, you know.
I love that. I love that. And I think like you've kind of that's always been ever since you've made yourself kind of public and done a lot of things on the internet and done a lot of these type of kind of videos and interviews, you've always been quite self-effacing in a way, really. And like you're the first to kind of, talk about yourself as a student much more than a teacher, really, and how you're still kind of learning and you ask a lot of questions in order to help other people, but also to kind of, be part of that development yourself in that way, really. And I think that's really important to just
Mm.
show your human side, really, in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, like that's one of the like just I think that's what like keeps everyone going is like seeing the human side, especially like, you know, it's been like a while since, but like the lockdowns and stuff for COVID and that whole time period that feels like it never happened, but
Mm.
yeah. But it's like you want to be able to connect to that person on some kind of level, even if like everyone wants to say, oh, the music should speak for itself, blah blah blah. But remember, like there was a person behind that, and like there's a whole story and experience and like wealth of something, there that you can relate to. It's like I I could be the guy that just posts musics and all like the highlights and stuff because social media is more or less the highlight reel. But it's like people can't really connect to that, It's like, and I hate seeing that kind of things stuff myself. It's just like I want to feel like the person that I'm listening to is like in the room with me, or like I could go, I'm in London, so I got to go down to the pub and have a pint or something.
Yeah.
Something with someone that's approachable and like I don't know, that's always worked for me. Like it's one of those like corny sayings or whatever, but be the change you want to see in the world. So it's like, oh,
Yeah.
just be yourself. Yeah. It took me a while
Yeah.
to get here for sure. Like wasn't always like kind of open and like myself. But now that like I'm here, it's so much more comfortable just doing whatever.
Yeah, there's a little kind of turbulence as you're adjusting to that, but then when you
Mhm.
get into that, it feels a lot more authentic in a way. And it's really cool you mentioned, like, the kind of idea of going for a pint. That's kind of, it was one of my earliest lessons in interviewing people from my original editor on the first magazine I wrote for. Is like, you want people to kind of feel like, yeah, I want to go for a pint with that guy after the
Mhm.
end of the interview. And that's kind of my brief for any conversation like this, is for people who've watched it or read it to come away thinking that guy's cool, that guy, I could sit down with them, have a cup of tea, have a beer with them or something like that, and I feel that they would get me or I get them more. And it can't just be about the music anymore. Like, some pieces of music will hit you and it doesn't matter where
Mhm.
they've come from, but most of the time it really does matter where it's come from and who's made it and why they've made it, and all of those cool things in the background which the artist doesn't even, you don't even think of when you're
Yeah.
making it or anything like that. It's for the interviewer or anybody who's frameworking the story to find that out and present it to the world in a way.
Yeah, totally. It's just like it's hard. I know, like, because most people, like, especially in like this kind of time period of like feeling like you need to make content. And I say feeling because like you don't have to do that. But it seems like because you see everyone else doing it and like the highlight realness of it all, it's like, all right, I gotta be doing this and I gotta be doing that and posting this video and the guy behind you with the shaky thing back and forth. It's like it's yeah, it helps and it works if that's what you want. But if that's not what you want, take that time consuming like what other people are doing and start just thinking about yourself. Like it's okay to be selfish in that aspect, just so you know where you stand with yourself. And you're not just kind of like, I feel this way, but I don't really want to dig into why. And it's hard. Like,
Mm.
and some people just within like respect to music and making music, they don't want to feel that, I don't know, deeply about it. But like you are a creator, you are making something, you're bringing these ideas from all these disparate places and you're making them into one thing. And it's like the whole alchemy of it. It's like, okay, so you're putting all this work into you want somebody to look at it, but the way you're seeing other people present their things isn't the way you have to. So it's always nice when I like see comments from people like, "Hey, once I saw you do this thing," and for some like it doesn't feel like you're promoting something, but you are, and it's like me just posting the cat, but the cat's my manager now. So it's like it's this whole thing to where like it's everyone has a cat, and everyone is like, "Oh, this cat," like they give them personalities and stuff, even though they're just meowing for food. So it's like it's not like a planned like I'm going to put my cat on the internet and I'm going to make sure it's like this whole thing. It's like no, it's just me being goofy. It's like what I would do off camera, but
Yeah.
just take a little clip. It takes no work to take a 10-second clip and just like, hey cat, what should we do for this promo? He goes meow. I was like, oh, nothing, and then that's it. And it works so well because people get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. And I think, just as you said, like, the more of your soul that you show in that type of way, or the reasons or the meaning that you've made that piece of music for, even if it is just a dance floor banger,
Mhm.
it adds to the longevity. The,
Yeah.
the more that you put out about it, the more you document about it, the more you talk about it and give it reasons and justify its context, I guess, although justify
Mhm.
doesn't feel like the right word, but establish its context, the more
Right.
then it stops being throwaway. It can't be throwaway then, really, can it? Or it's less likely to become throwaway, which so much content is. And I hate
Mhm.
using the word content in music.
I know that exact feeling. But it's like, yeah, it just adds just this little bit more
Mm.
of that's my own track, a little bit more. Anyway, but it's like one of those things that like that extra dimension of just like, okay, yeah, here's this tune, here's just what 3, 4, 5 minute thing that yes, it goes off on the dance floor, but like one little piece of trivia can like do so much in making it make more sense. It's kind of like vocal tunes versus the instrumentals. Like the instrumental might feel one way, but like having vocals, having the words, someone more or less telling you in a songwriting kind of way of how they're feeling, you relate to that. But in the same way, I can be like, oh, I made this tune, after like I was being inspired by a show, or after like a rough day, or like after listening to something completely different, and I just had like a spark. And people can gravitate to that because they have those exact same feelings. Like nothing just like there's it's like there's no original ideas, but like everyone's influenced by something, whether directly or indirectly. So if you just kind of talk about those little influences just offhand a little bit, you can kind of weave a little bit of a narrative. And even if it's just like, I made this tune in the morning. Oh, so you make tunes in the morning. Well, I make tunes at night. I wonder like where the workflow are. Or you can draw something
Yeah,
from anything, you know? But
yeah,
just that
yeah.
little piece of trivia or something. Fun fact, a little fun fact can like just add a bit of depth to something, you know?
Oh, 100%. And I thought the fun fact behind Class Dismissed was the fact that you'd given up teaching. I thought, or not given up,
Yeah.
but stepped down from teaching, that your
Mm,
musical career had got to the point now where you were able to do that. Now, that's not quite there yet. Now, I've since learned, but you are. I mean, it's what, where are you at as a teacher? And now your students, I've seen you
mm.
post about this, your students are starting to recognize you beyond Mr. Winslow now. You are also Winslow to a lot of your teacher students, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah, it's funny. Like every it'll be like at least once a week, someone like one of them will just like either bring it up or make a joke about it, or all the jokes are so because kids there's like the teenagers like 11 to 14. So and like it's nice to come we have that relationship where I'm not the super old like strict teacher yet. I imagine like what if I get beat down over the years, maybe I'll be that way. But they're just like I'll mess with them immediately because like they're learning how to play instruments, and like the best like a really good way of making them comfortable with making mistakes is me just making fun of myself or making mistakes and they're like, you're not supposed to do that. It's like, come on, I'm human too. And they're like, oh, okay. So then it
Yeah.
comes around like this one specific moment of like I'm always telling jokes or something. They're like, "Hey, Mr. Winslow, you want to hear a joke?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." Your music career, and I was like, "Oh my god!" It's just like, yeah, it's like, all right, that's fair, all right. But it's like, it's that
Wow.
I know it's like so cutting and direct, and I wasn't expecting it. But it's funny because they're interested enough to like they like it. The ones that know and that care like it and are very like supportive in their own way.
Hmm.
But then they're also like they're also just make a joke about it because I mean it's obvious it's a normal thing, but
Yeah.
then so yeah, like it's funny how like just seeing how they are kind of like oh, this is my teacher, but he also like there's this whole life he has that's also really related to what we do every day. And they see like because for example like a lot of teachers just teach but they're not actively like within that realm of whatever they're doing, like
They're not practicing it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so like they see me not only in the classroom, but then like doing all this other stuff. And I tell them like the whole story or like short, like, yeah, I started out in orchestra in fourth and fifth grade and stuff like you. And then here I am. And however the dots connected, like you can do that same thing as all these, you don't have to just sit here and try and get an A. You can just be here for fun. And then years later down the line, it's like you're doing something else or you're touring around the world or something like that.
Yeah,
So I
definitely.
love
I
how it
think
just
that's
ties all together.
amazing.
Yeah.
And I would have respect. I would probably be one of those students, like having a joke, but deep down, hugely respecting my teacher and
Yeah.
doing that because you're out there, you're showing what's capable, you're showing what can be done with your life, really, if you're just enjoying what you're doing. And I guess for you, this prevents you being a teacher is like a safety barrier. You can't go off the rails. There are certain
Nah.
things you just can't say. There's like sometimes we all have an off day where we might post something a little bit off key online or say
Mhm.
something from the heart or as a gut reaction when we really should have thought about it more. You just can't do that. Like you're dealing, you said it, you're dealing with 11 to 14-year-olds. So I'm guessing as a professional
Mm.
across everything that you do, you are able, you have to stay kind of pretty clean and safe. And that's a really nice place to be. You just can't do certain things or be
Yeah.
too rock and roll in a way. And I think that's cool. Like it's kept you, it gives you that kind of space to work in, and you know what that space is. You can't go too wild because of your
Mhm.
duality as a DJ, a really fucking cool DJ. And at the moment, who's making music like when like North American drum and bass has never been so popular or exciting in at least 20 years, maybe longer, maybe
Yeah.
ever. you're right at the forefront of that. So you're doing something really, really cool, but you're also day to day doing, kind of a very, very conventional, responsible job. So that gives you this kind of mad duality, really, at the moment,
Mm.
doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like, okay, kind of have you like you touched on, you started like I did get really close to just feeling like, all right, there can't like it's just so hard to do both, like 40 like or 40 plus hours of just teaching and then trying to have like the same kind of work ethic I had before with production and stuff. And I still manage it, but there's just like so much balancing going on to from just like your presence as an artist online because I'm not gigging every weekend, but then like your presence and the stability of having that job, which like it it makes so I don't have to like, all right, I gotta get these tunes out, I gotta make sure these gigs are happening, But I just got really close to feeling like, all right, because I know like myself, if I had like I used to with like university or like between that, if I had just dive full in the music, I know I can make it work given some time, given like the way I am and like the wonderful like just team of support I have, whether it's hospital or friends or other artists and DJs and people I've met like you over the years. But there's just it's so much uncertainty that I just have to kind of like compartmentalize like what I want and what I have and things like that. And I love teaching. Like as bad as like teaching as like a whole in a general sense is kind of like in the toilet right now, just around the world, looking at my like looking at like where I am and like my opportunities and stuff. It's like I'm in a good place. Like I have great students. The schools I'm in are very supportive. Like they still are like only a couple teachers like no like the principals know because like when they hired me they're like, oh yeah, we saw you do this music thing, and like and every now and then like, oh, you got the little music thing on the side, not realizing that how like all encompassing like it's depending on the time of the year. Like the music
Yeah.
thing is way bigger than the teaching thing, but the teaching thing is what like pays the bills and like everything like that. So it's weird living like this, the duality, but at the same time it's still music. And I treat them both the same way with the same like care and like
Yeah.
consideration to what's going on because like these kids depend on me to teach the music and all these other life lessons or whatever that I've just in my 30 years of being alive, my young oldness. I'm old to them. Like they let me know it. But
Uh,
in the grand scheme of things, I'm in the beginning. But
How have you
it's
found that,
fun.
by the way? Because I noticed that you've only just turned 30 in the last couple of days. Turning
Yeah.
30 for me was a huge, like, all through my 20s, my life was going so well and I was so happy that I didn't want to turn 30. I thought it'd be like the
Mhm.
nightmare. I would turn suddenly, I would get my pipe and slippers through the post. I'd be told to stop working in dance music and go and be an old man somewhere. And I was honestly thought that was going to happen when I turned 30. Turned out 30s is even better than 20s. 40s
Yeah.
is even better than then. And my old man tells me 50s is even better than that. I don't know about that. But life does get better. But how have you found it? Because I spoke to a lot of people, and a lot of people at the time when I turned 30, you were like, yeah, I felt the same. I didn't want to tell anybody. I wanted to just quickly just turn 30 on the side and carry on with life and pretend I was still in my 20s. How was that
Mm.
transition for you?
Honestly, I've always I've always been like an old man. I've been called like old my whole life of just being the responsible one, the one that always has it planned out. And it's like it's not like I'm not like let's say my girlfriend's like a checklist kind of person. I'm not like that. Like I have like my overall plan just so I'm not like just so I can wing it, but like my winging it is within me having already thought and overthought about everything so far. So like it feels kind of the same. And it's even funnier, like with having students. They're like, oh, you're so old. Like when I don't know, when I'm 30, I'm not gonna, what am I gonna do with my life? I'm like, when you're 30, like you're gonna feel a whole lot different. And it's like, when you're younger and you feel like when you turn 18, now you're an adult and you know everything. And then
Yeah.
you turn 21, you're like, I was dumb when I was 18. And you turn 25, like, I don't know what I was thinking when I was 21. Then yeah, it's like that whole thing. And I just kind of saw it for what it was of like, I'm getting older, I'm gaining experience, in
Mm.
whatever I'm doing in my life. So, and now I just feel even more like prepared for whatever's coming. It's just, it's a number and it means something, but it's not like this end all be all like, oh no, I'm 30. I might as well. drop all this music and just be a teacher and stuff. I don't
Yeah.
think I could do
Get those
that. Yeah,
patches, get those patches on your jacket, start out
right,
bad
right.
breath, start moaning about everything. I mean, I do want to tap into this whole superpower of yours, because not everybody can teach. I think it's a really, and now having kids who are going through the education
Mhm.
system, I realize like what really makes a good teacher and the effect and the influence that they have. It's very easy to think about your own favorite teachers when you're seeing it with your own children. Like teaching, being a good teacher is a real superpower. I think if you've got that skill, then it's amazing. And I want to tap into your special skill now,
Yeah.
because you do this, you do interviews like this, you make content like this. I would say, I mean, you get better numbers than me. I think, you interview from a different perspective. I'm constantly trying to develop what I'm doing with one more thing and stuff. How can I be better? Teach me, man. I'm one of your students right now. I'm not
I
going to crack any nasty jokes or anything.
and it's like it's so tough to like say I don't know what could be done because like specific like I've always like loved like your writing and then your podcast stuff. Like I just listened to like with all like this traveling, like the break one on the plane before that was
Nice,
halogenics. And I just saw like you had one with Ria, which I have saved already to go through. And it's like
brilliant.
it's I don't know, for me, like I'm definitely not like a natural like interviewer or anything like that. But I watch a lot of people who are and I try to take notes from that. And what I've always just I guess learn is just, get the other person talking, be like just genuinely interested in what the other person has to say and things like that. It's like at the asking leading questions, like, journalism that I didn't go to school for and just tried to, learn and just, I don't know, the human side, just not like, I have these list of questions, let's go through them, then we're done. Just like have a conversation. I think which you do super well. And like, I feel like I'm always all over the place. But like I tell people, especially when I'm like doing like kind of one-to-one lessons, like I'm going to be all over the place, but trust me, in the end, it's going to tie together somehow. And like so
Yeah,
far, I have that like rhythm down, but I don't know, it's starting with a plan and just kind of letting it go where it goes instead of trying to like, all right, we're going to do this, we're going to go there. It's like,
yeah,
well, that's not how conversations work, And when you're
yeah.
conversational, the other person opens up.
Yeah,
I
completely.
think,
And I
yeah,
like that idea of it kind of unraveling and almost getting out of your hands, and then you bring it back together, like a mix going out of time or something.
yeah,
And you know where
yeah.
you're going to go, and it might go right round the scenic route, but then it comes back to where you need it to be, or you're able to loop it off in a way. And I think I
Mhm.
know that I've got that ability, but it's something that I've noticed with your content, which I haven't really done. But I think you do it really well from the perspective of where you're at as a musician. Is
Mhm.
when you get a little bit baity, when you get a little bit controversial, like with the thing with mid-tier producers and stuff,
Yeah.
saying that you were your own worst enemies and stuff, and that was all over my timeline when you put that out. And you've done a few of them where there is some backlash, but it's all
Mhm.
it's people talking about it, and that's what you want. You want to trigger these discussions, don't you? I mean, that particular one about being mid-tier artists and not valuing yourself, really, I think, really was the
Mhm.
kind of take home of that. I mean, that was what led to that. And did you expect such an outcome from that? Because
It's funny. Like that one was like it's it's just it started from one of like those like conversations like that everyone's having like in the green rooms or like at gigs and stuff like that, but no one wants to say out loud. Like no matter like the few gigs I've done where I'm meeting like the top of the top producers and stuff like that, or just like regular, I don't know, like regular producers like me, just like still up and coming and like doing those kind of things. It's always like the same kind of inside jokes, the haha, like the nudge nudge that everyone will say but not talk about.
yeah,
And me trying to do it as tactfully as possible in the video, which I think did pretty well because like I guess I can kind of tell when like reactions are, you're saying the thing, and I don't want you to say it. I don't want to agree with you, but you're right. There's a whole lot of those, and then there's the usual like just flammable comments of people just being like up in arms and taking it personal, which if the shoe fits, look at your shoes or whatever the saying is. But like all of that is when if it is within all of us. Like I opened it up saying like I'm I've done all these things. I've been been that guy. I'm still some of that person, and it's all part of like your journey, you know, like it's like you go through all these stages of like being the guy that's just in everyone's DMs, like trying to get attention, but what you're trying to get attention with isn't really up to the quality. It's just you've kind of gassed yourself up, or your friends have, in a certain way, and like realistically it's like it's not ready. I've been there. I've like all the labels I've kind of worked with up until this point, I have like emails and DMs to where they just left me on red because I was that guy at some point. you know I mess with like Johnny Mike Kiss about that all the time, because one of the first messages I sent from him or sent to him was about like putting tunes on the label, and it just has a read receipt on Facebook Messenger. And then there's a message 2 years later, like, hey, we're looking for some music from the label. I was like, you're gonna ignore that one? But it's like things happen when it's, the right time. But you
Yeah.
have to have like that, I don't know, self-awareness to know where you are, and just be like brutally honest with yourself about like what you're actually doing. Because there's a lot of just egos going around, whether deserved or undeserved, and like just come back to the human side, come back down to earth. Like we're all just kind of making stuff, and none of us really know what we're doing, but we're all fortunate to be able to do those things. And even more fortunate when someone else sees that and wants to like bolster and support what you're doing.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know, but the
Yeah.
video was fun.
Yeah, no, I love that, and I love seeing ones like that. I guess at the moment while you're on tour, then those type of videos, those videos happen when it's gaps between kind of shows, or when you've got a little more time to think about stuff, where
Yeah.
you're not kind of sleeping on couches, or you're traveling around and stuff like that, and doing the
Right.
cool Winslow thing. Like,
Yeah, it's that's another thing I guess like people don't understand, but I think they're starting to get to, like, I'm not doing all of this stuff at once. Like once like I'm usually pretty like forward about it. It's like once I have like my project or whatever, like everything's like set, mastered, promos done. That's when it's time to be goofy and mess around. And then when it's time to get buckle back down into music, that's when you don't see posts, or you don't see many videos or streams and stuff. Like I'm back to work. And then when you see like, all right, video, it's like, what's he doing? It's like, I have time now, Because like even before, like way back when it was kind of like almost a weekly thing, that was when I was just kind of like in uni, or just like working a part-time job or something. And then like I had so much time, and I had all these ideas and stuff. And like I still have the ideas, but I just have them like on a checklist. Like that's my one list now, so I don't forget them.
yeah,
And then like, yeah, this like the music, it always takes precedent. Like that's why I'm here. It's because of the music and like my creative output and stuff like that. But when that's out of the way, like the creative wheels are still going, even if I don't feel like making music. So I just try and figure out another way to apply the same thing, you know?
yeah, totally. It feels like the music just flows out of you. There's always, and I know that that isn't the case, and I know that there are lots of struggles behind the scenes, and we only ever hear your best work in that type of way. But just recently we've had Blastissimo, which was like the opening track on the US drum and bass compilation that Slow Roast have put together
Mm.
and stuff like that. We've got Class Dismissed as well. There's been plenty more. I mean, what struggles behind all of this output do people not know that you're able to kind of share, and that people are able to learn from? Like, when have you been, or can you think of recent times when you've been bashing your head against the wall thinking like, I can't get this to work?
All the time. It's like, like right now it's kind of like my summer period, which I get like a 2.5 months all kind of from school. And that's like I've just been like sketch after sketch, and just like everything's coming together. But during the school year, when it's like get up at 5:30 in the morning, hit snooze, and then I'm up by like 6:15 because I gotta go then, and then getting home by like 3:30, and I'm just done. And I have to like it took like the first couple weeks of school are just like me not making anything, just like come home, sit on the couch, fall asleep, wake up, dinner, fall back asleep, make sure the cat's fed, me and my girlfriend watch something on TV, but like there's no creativeness. Like I still have ideas,
Hmm.
but there's no like willingness to walk into the other room, open up the door, make something. And then I start to find kind of a groove in that, like it goes to like, okay, it's Thursday, Friday I'm not doing anything during the day. Let me just work on stuff till like 11 or something at night, or as early as that is. It's funny because I go like these gigs are all overnight. I'm like, guys, I am done. Like after I'm not said I'm going home. They're like, you don't want to party till 6 a.m. Like, no, like, but um, yeah, just like I start figuring out a schedule of like weekends. I'll make sure to wake up early, like on Saturday and Sunday, and just like I'll kind of if I don't have anything to do, anywhere to go, like I'll be up at like for school schedules, like around 6 or 7, and just like work on ideas and things all on the weekends, and then barely anything during the week. And once and things will just go, and I'll kind of like, all right, 1 or 2 hours a day, just work on this specific thing. And I'm not really that kind of person to be like, all right, I'm just going to do this for an hour and that's it. Because like once I get started, then it's like, all right, I remember how to do this, and I'm back in it, and I'm just like 3 or 4 hours pass. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to be wrecked in the morning because it's too late for me to get the right amount of sleep. But it's like it's all worth it, you know. But like I just do have to be regimented in a way that I just naturally am not. And sometimes it will be like a month or weeks going, like weeks to a month of just nothing. Like I'll work on things, but it's like I'm really just listening to the same loop over and over, or tweaking the sound that doesn't need to be tweaked. And it feels like I'm doing something, and it scratches that itch of I'm being creative. But in reality, I'm just kind of killing time till I fall asleep the next time. It's one of those.
Yeah.
But like you eventually find a balance, I think, because you want to create so much. Like you're just going to find a way to do it, even if one thing slips, or one morning is really hard, or one evening's really late. Like in the end, it all comes out in the wash. There we go. That's a good saying.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And it's interesting, the last couple of interviews that I've done in this type of way. So I spoke to Zardonic recently, and he was saying, sometimes, and Guzzi as well, the time before that, there's for Zardonic, it was remix requests where he's still being creative, but there's deadlines and there's
Yeah.
expectations from other labels and there's a brief. And with Guzzi, it's mastering. And both of them said really similar things. Like sometimes it can be weeks and weeks before they can actually get to their own personal output, their own personal creations. And I think that's something that comes up with so many conversations with people. It's like, don't feel guilty if you can't
Mm,
get to your own tunes, sometimes for a month,
yeah.
like when you're starting a term or something like that, because the guilt then compounds everything and makes you feel even awful. And that's when you are just sitting at the computer going through the motions, tweaking something to make yourself feel better that you've done something. When then actually,
Mm,
you could almost be like detracting from the quality of that track because you're over tweaking it and things like that.
yeah.
So it's not feeling guilty and being okay with the fact that sometimes we can be a month or two before you can get onto the cool stuff. We're humans. Humans have lives and responsibilities, and the cool stuff can't be 24/7.
Yeah, it's just like you really have to be like, the word of the past 5 or like however many years, like mindful of what you're doing and what you want to do and things like that. Like I know I want to make like it's not even specific music. It's like the music, the videos, the whatever. I like creativity is like I can't exist without it. I
Yeah.
really can't. And like I'm even like I'm creative in the classroom in a sense, but there's like it's more like, all right, you're gonna learn how to do this. There's a step-by-step way. But I figure out like my own ways to kind of approach it and things like that. And then when it comes to just like making music and things like that, like the biggest thing I had to learn and just kind of focus on is just let go of expectations. Like when I walk into the room, I know I'm gonna make something, but I can't be specific about I mean, I can try and be as specific as I want to make whatever to make something specific. I keep saying the same thing, but to make something with an idea in mind and an end goal. But like the more I try and stay strict to that end goal of whatever I came up with before I started, like the harder it is to get through it.
Mm.
Like even like the past week where I have like no deadlines, no nothing. I sat down like with an idea first of making something like a darker, like steppier tune, for example. 5 minutes later, I'm like rolling it out as usual. I'm like, how did I get here? But it's like instead of feeling like guilty or like I wanted to do this, like what am I doing? Just embracing that I naturally went this way. So let's just see where that thing goes. Cause I can always come back to this other idea. And I'm always creating for myself, even if it's going to end up on a label or some big thing with a nice promotional campaign. And I'm thinking of all this stuff and dressing up as whatever character. It started off as me just wanting to make something and getting this idea or this inspiration out of my head and into more or less physical form. And that whole exercise is an exercise you have to keep going. You have to keep flexing that muscle. Like it might, here we go. It might atrophy or something. It might go away, but the muscle's still there, and you could always beef it back up to where he is. You know, like even Arnold Schwarzenegger has like days to where he's just like, I'm not that strong, but then he's like, bam, Mr. Olympia in a month or whatever in the old days. So like you can always come back if you've been at that point, that level before where you're just like cranking things out and you're having an off day or an off week or an off year.
Mm.
You always know you can come back to that. You know, if you've been there once, you can get back to it. It's going to take some work, but you've done that work before. You know.
Yeah, definitely. And you can have off years. I mean, if you're in this for the long game, then like you're like
Yeah.
every artist does, and this is like a cliche that seems to come up in every interview as well. It's the old Scream saying that your career doesn't start until you're at least 10 years into it or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. Like to have those peaks and troughs. And who else? Like Clips I've spoken to about
Yeah.
this, and he gave me goosebumps when he said it. He was like, if you're not happy existing in the trough where you are frustrated and you don't feel like things are going the right way, or you don't feel like you're quite finishing things, and you're
Mm-hmm.
feeling a little bit uncomfortable with your own creativity, if you're not comfortable with that uncomfortability, you're not going to last
Oh
much
yeah.
longer. You're not going to last. So you're not going to go the long haul in a way, really, I
Mm.
think. And that's definitely, I mean, having done this, and I can completely relate, just making stuff, like it's just doing cool shit, whether it's writing, whether it's editing, whether it's making a magazine, whether it's designing something. Like it's just the creation really is the thrilling thing for me, and the actual kind of making of stuff. Like after 20 odd years, 25 years of doing this, I still feel like that, really. And
Mm.
it's, if you're not feeling like that, then you're probably doing something wrong, or you're not in it for the right reasons, or you're not being your best. You're not pushing yourself in a way, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Like I'm just you have to embrace that uncomfortability. It's like because it means usually outside from like the normal kind of anxieties of things of you're because you're making something and then you're putting it out to the world and the person on the other end isn't necessarily feeling about the thing the way you feel about it, YouTube comments, all that kind of thing.
Mm.
But it's like you're making it, you got to remember why, like why you're doing it. Like if you know your why, like as annoying as that sounds, like that's what's going to keep you going. Like no matter, and it's funny. I try and like again, like being just transparent forward when like people always think like, oh, you're on hospital, like you've reached the top, like there's nothing else you have to do. Like it must be so nice. And like, yeah, it's great, but I'm still like nervous all the time. I'm still on this roster of artists that have like done so much. Like you
You're on
think
there with like
about,
Danny Bird, Logistics,
yeah,
New Tone,
exactly,
like
and
the
then,
label that High Contrast came from and stuff like that. You're like,
right,
you're now you like. I think that's even more pressure for you because you're on the biggest label in the genre, really.
yeah,
There's got to be some nice benefits, like having a team of people who can support you and give you feedback and stuff, and having the support of that label. But the rules, well, yeah, I don't know if rules is the right word. The expectations, everything else, you're playing on a bigger pitch with like some of the best players in the game, really. Like,
yeah, like there are like these, let's say, apparent expectations and things like from the outside looking in, like you think are going on. Like everyone has their, whether it's hospital or like any other labels, like, oh, you're on a major label or you're on this, so you have to do this and they're going to change. And like, no, because like the whole point of me being here is to embrace what you saw before you like brought me on, that kind of thing. And it's been like from my point of view, it's been nothing but that. Like I have this 140 tune coming out because they know I just do whatever I kind of feel like.
yeah,
But to the like whatever I'm going to do is going to be at that level you expect. Like not it's going to be the greatest thing or whatever you ever heard, but that's not the point. It's like my idea, I'm like, I'm going to go the entire way and see what the idea, I'm going to bring things together and like it might not make sense at first, but like it'll come through the back end or like whatever you want to say. But
mm,
there is this pressure and there's like pressure on me because I'm like, all right, so all the people I've looked up to in my 10, 12 years of like producing are now like in the other room or they're on stage after me and I'm like talking to them. And oh, they're normal people who have these same kind of anxieties, these same things. And no matter how many, like awards they have, they're still like, oh man, I don't know. Cause tomorrow it could be gone. And of course it could. But you got to realize that like you're there in those opportunities because someone saw something in you that they believed in. I couldn't make them, choose me, but whatever I did was enough for them to come knocking. And like once you have the job, like no, you got the job for a reason. Like I like listening to like a lot of podcasts from like comedians and stuff who are and actors who are like freaking out because on set they don't know if they acted out the scene right, but like they have to remind themselves like if the person said that was good, just believe it. If that
Yeah.
if they're the ones in charge, with all the support, they're the ones brought you on, like they brought you there for a reason. And it's to benefit you both. Like, I mean, there's
Yeah.
horror stories or whatever, great stories on both sides, but the point is you're there for a reason. So just let that kind of don't try not to think about it too much. Know that you're doing a job, so you got to do something. You got to do whatever got you there, but you don't have to overthink yourself in a hole past that.
You're absolutely right
Yeah.
there. And it's really true whether I've done like a filmed interview or every week on Vision Radio, like working with Noisia, and I come away thinking like, was that all right? Did I say that? But if I did do a rubbish job, then those people who are filming me, employing me, working with me would be the first people to say, can we do that again, please, Dave? I think
Yeah.
that wasn't quite as good as you could normally do. And yeah, that's the logic there. Like you try and tell that to your overthinking, and that's your overthinking is going to go no, no, no. But then they haven't said that for whatever reasons, and your overthinking and your anxieties will
Mhm.
go for ages. But yeah, the real logic is if you did something which wasn't quite the level that they expect of you, whether that's hospital, gold fat, or anybody that you work with, or likewise for me, like they just say, yo, nah, you could do better than that. Come on, like find it in you.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a compliment then. And that should be where the logic should just stop that worry in
Mhm.
your head. But brains don't work in that way, do they?
No, it's just like it's a constant like reassuring myself that like I'm here on like merit and not something else or that because like it's just kind of the internet and like the whole consciousness of like somebody can comment on something without knowing a lick of what's going on. It's like, oh, you like I haven't gotten too many, but it's like, oh, so hospital or like you sold out. It's like, no, I'm not. And this is like one of the things that like really helped me kind of like it's kind of recompartmentalize things and think about. And I tell other people this now is like when someone comes along and it's like those like sellout thoughts come along, think about it as you're not selling out, like you're cashing in on all the things you've done up until that point, all the work you've done, like it's coming, the work you put in is like coming to fruition. And it doesn't mean cash in as like your pockets are full and like, the Ferrari and whatever is showing up to like, I like joking about that because people legitimately think like, oh, yeah, you have the deal. So like you're driving around a Ferrari. I was like, man, I got yelled at by 112-year-olds today. Don't tell me like that's what's going on in my life. But like the thing is, like all the work, like you're putting in this work, and you want it to be for like altruistic things, like oh, it's just for the love and for the this, but like the love isn't what's keeping these your favorite labels around. Like supporting them on Bandcamp is buying tickets to their events is buying the merchandise is, and like there
Being their
has
Patreons, being
yeah,
like subscribing on Patreon, and you subscribe to my Patreon,
I
and
do. I do.
I've been waiting for
Yeah.
a moment to bring that up in a way that seems really natural, and in any way like it's getting for me this feels like an awful plug. Patreon has done my head in like mental
Mhm.
health wise. That's a whole other conversation, I think. But thank you, like, for doing that. But yeah, it's the real kind of the physical ground level support. And no matter how big hospital is, they've also got a huge team to create that largeness, which
Yeah.
involves needing to make a lot of revenue and to host those huge events and stuff. So
Mhm.
we're still drum and bass. Like if you'd have sold
Right.
out, you'd be doing like, I don't know, really cheesy kind of top 10 hits with an EDM star or something
Maybe,
like that.
yeah.
That would be selling out, or being suddenly being sponsored by Coca-Cola and having Coca-Cola written on every brand, like piece of clothing that you're wearing. I'm not too sure. I don't selling out is when it's something that is feels inauthentic.
Totally. Like I like just being authentic and like having an authentic experience with other people, or just like the social media side of things of just being myself. Like it it's what you need. Like it's like when you're going for longevity, it's like you can't keep up an act for that long. Like the best people who have, I don't know, in other like disciplines and stuff, like they still find their day of just like, oh, they crashed, they said the wrong thing, or they didn't know what to do because like they weren't naturally being themselves. It's kind of like when you tell a kid like, hey, if you don't lie, you don't have to remember the lie, just tell the truth. But like they're kids, so they still don't do that. It's just like, yeah, just go, like be yourself, like serve your art and like the music. Like if you're doing it for other like monetary gain and like clout or whatever, that's gonna die away. Because when you don't get that, then it's like you lose your purpose. But if you're doing it for yourself, and on top of that, you're getting these things and people are coming to you, all these opportunities, that's more or less, that's icing on the cake. Like the cake was creating and just having fun, but like the icing is like, oh, I get to go here this week and I get to do this. And like
Yeah.
none of that's promised, like I'm fortunate to be sitting like in an Airbnb in London, to be completely transparent, on my own dime. But like that's how much I feel, and like I need to do this, because I can't, go out to Fabric or Phonox or Fold every weekend, because I live where I live in Kansas City back home, and like we have what we have. But like it's not like just step out, go out in the tube and just like, oh, look at like what I've been doing all this time is just like open up Resident Advisor and see what's going on. Like, oh, it's Thursday, let's just go to this show.
Yeah.
I can't do that. But like when I'm back home, my way of supporting the scene is I still buy tracks. I get promo. I'm getting more and more promos here and there, but I'll still buy tracks. If I can't, like, if I'm getting the tunes sent to my inbox, I'll still go buy a t-shirt or something. Or and like, okay, so me and you like support you on Patreon, because like that's just my way of being a part of the scene, going to the show, saying hi, like networking, but not networking, just being a friendly face, but on the internet, kind of thing. So like you can see like on my own Patreon like profile, for example, like all the other artists I've subscribed to, and I don't need anything from them, but I just do it because I know what that means when somebody does it for me, you know?
Oh man, and it's such a buzz. I mean, I honestly thought, yeah, I'd like you to help me, in fact, teach me about Patreon. So I thought that Patreon would be my way of monetizing everything with one more thing. And I spoke to lots of people and they're all like, yeah, 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 I'll support you. Now that it doesn't quite mean that they'll subscribe. They might not be in a financial situation. They might not want to. They might
Yeah.
have not got around to it. In my head, I thought that meant that they would subscribe. So it's like, well, I've asked at least 100 people. They all subscribe, £5. No, 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 no. Done the maths.
Yeah.
Bollocks to all that maths. Like, and because Patreon take a cut as well, and then you take your taxes and all the rest of it, it doesn't work out the way that you think it does. And I was because I'm looking at numbers on social media and stuff. Like it was a huge, huge learning lesson. But what I found was one, it started off really exciting, but then I'd be having a conversation with somebody and I thought I'd be saying like, yo, support me on Patreon. They'd be like, yeah, cool, I'll do that. But then they don't, they've just liked my page or shared my page. It's like, oh, right. Okay. So I had to get over my ego on that to begin with.
Mm,
But then I started seeing like, it's like, well, hang on, I'm not actually honoring the people with what I said I would, because asking people for free music in order to get people to pay me didn't feel right either. And
yeah.
then I go on Patreon after a month and I'd see that people I knew had stopped subscribing and be like, oh my God, no, like, what can I do? Like, I don't want to talk to them and say, why haven't you subscribed? Because they might be in a situation where they can't subscribe to me anymore.
Yeah.
Or it's people I know really, really well, and I've just had a conversation with on the phone, but then they've cancelled their subscription and they haven't said that anything about it to me. So I can't say anything to them. And I just got like I had 3 months where I couldn't check my Patreon because I just feel sick. Just that very thought,
Yeah.
because one or two close colleagues of mine had stopped subscribing for whatever reason. I still haven't spoken to them about it. I don't know how to. I don't know how to bring it up without sounding like, oi, why aren't you paying me
Mhm.
that £5 a month, which you didn't need to pay me anyway? And I'm really, really grateful for. But after 4 months, you stopped doing it. And I don't understand why. I need to wait until I'm in the right social scenario to do that. how you must be able to relate to some of those observations.
Oh
How
yeah.
do you get over that and get over yourself? Because it's all up there. It's
Mm.
all in my head. It's nothing to do with anybody who's ever subscribed or not subscribed or said they support and haven't support and all of that. Because we all want to be support. We all want to support things. How do you get over those bullshit knots in your head and actually make Patreon work for you? Because I'm stuck in this really weird one. Like,
Mm. Man, it's so yeah. I like wish I had like it's like a direct answer, but it's just like one of those like you got I guess remember why you're doing it and just like establish what you want or what your like what its purpose is up front. Because for me, yeah, at the beginning it was like, all right, I'm going to do these things kind of every month and um try to keep up with it. I had like 4 or 5 different tiers and stuff like that, and it's like now there's like 3, and like I still don't know if I'm like on the right direction. But then like I started kind of talking to people, and like there's 2 different like kind of like ideas about what Patreon is for. Like a lot of people think it's like a Netflix kind of thing. It's like I pay this much a month, I'm going to get this, this, and this, and if I don't get that, then I'm not going to be there, or
yeah,
it's not worth it. And
yeah,
then some are just like, oh, it's another way to support your favorite person, you know, like your favorite artist. And
yeah,
I try to take it from that point of view. It's just like it's just another outlet to support. It's more than a follow because you're putting money up front, but it's I don't know, less than maybe like a festival ticket or I don't know, something that would be higher, like a t-shirt or something.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's just another outlet for people to support. Because the biggest thing about like that I've learned about just getting people support is just like meeting them on the platforms they're already on. So a lot of people like they actively use Patreon, or like they whether they're like creators themselves or like they just like it for like they subscribe to like a couple other artists. So like the ease of getting into it and like subscribing to yours for a month or however long is simpler. You know, like everyone uses Facebook. It's easy to go on Facebook, like, hey, add friend or like the page because like you're used to that rhythm in a sense.
mm,
But then the other people are like, oh, if I don't get these 3 drum loops, then I don't think you're worth it. It's like, well,
yeah,
are you trying to support the artist or are you just trying to get a thing? And like it's interesting because those people who kind of want the things, not that there's anything bad with that, because like
no,
you want what you want, but like when they are on the flip side of trying to start their own and realizing that that doesn't actually work, and most people don't come around because of that thing, they come around because of you know, and the thing you offer is nice as well. Like for like in another example is like my YouTube channel. Like there's so many things that don't apply to like the majority of people who watch the videos, but they like watching them like when I post them because they just like seeing me talk about stuff. And
mm,
it's weird to kind of get that in your head, but then you realize that a lot of the things you probably consume yourself, like you're not talking to that person directly. Like I'm not like, hey, Denzel Washington, you acted the crazy, that part the craziest. He doesn't know that. But I like watching his movies when they come out, you know?
yeah,
And I just like supporting that person, whether it goes directly to them or like the idea of just like throwing some support there where like whether they need it or not, like it's a way to support them, even if it's for a month, 12 months. Here's some money. Here's something,
that's it.
you
That's
know?
it, really. And I think I have met and I've had this conversation with a few people, and they've said, like, I don't even use Patreon as a platform. I'm literally subscribed to you. I don't check the emails that you send. Because I put up this big thing about like, yo, sorry, I haven't been on here, and I've said everything that I said to you pretty much, like saying this is doing my head in. And a lot of people I've talked to them about it, and they're like, oh, I didn't even see that. I pay you $5 for a month because I want to. I want to see you thrive. I want to see you
Yeah.
exist. And it's that second, is that those are the real kind of fans. Those are the people that I raise my hat to, salute
Mm-hmm.
to, and have a beer with at any
Yeah.
festival and stuff. And I think it's really hard, and loads of people have said, because it's something that I took for granted working at UKF. It wasn't my brand as much as I believed in the editorial and believed in that website, and still do now, and like I, as much as effort and soul and heart that I put into all of that content, it wasn't my business. And
Yeah.
now I interview a lot of people or speak to a lot of people about running a business and running a brand, and one huge piece of advice is not to take it too personally, but I see this as my creativity. This is like, this is me making music here. and it's impossible for me to not take personally. So
Mm.
I've realized my shortcomings as a business person in that I haven't got any business acumen in any way. It's so personal. Like, but living a creative life is so personal, and everybody says about having thick skin. It's not that easy though, is it? It's,
No.
even like, all of these years down the line, I'm probably even more sensitive now than I ever used to be. I mean, if you come under fire under, comments and stuff, we've mentioned them before and stuff, but you've clearly got a way of letting that breeze over you. Or do they sting when you read something? It's like, well, that was completely uneducated, that came from the wrong place, or that you don't know anything about my career.
Mm.
Again, I've never seen you respond back. I've never seen you flare up. I've never seen you get into any beef in any type of way. I'm sure you probably have, because it's only natural to respond like, yeah, but I've never seen you write, "Oh, fuck off, mate," or anything like that back to anybody.
The urge is always there for sure, but it's like you're not gonna. It's like you're not gonna reason somebody out of an opinion they didn't reason themselves into. You
Mm.
know, it's like there's always comments. Like I saw one today about it's like you completely missed the point of what I'm saying. And that's the frustrating part. It's like if you like looked at what I was doing and you understood like the point I was trying to get across and you disagreed, I'm cool with that. But if it was just like gut reaction, this is stupid. I don't like this. It's like, well, and then like whatever your comment afterwards, you're like not addressing anything I talked about. I always just want to go like, hey, can you go back and just kind of watch a little bit or like the cliff notes or something? Or I don't know. But it's like when someone just doesn't put that time, and I get it, not everyone has the time to worry about and think about things. And so many people don't want to think about the things because they view like the content as escapism and things like that, which is sure, so do I. I watch the same like TV show every day just because I know I can just like I know it's gonna happen. I can quote the lines, but like there's a comfortability to it, that kind of thing. But yeah, I just like sometimes just want to say it, and eventually you gotta either like block that person so you don't see that negativity like build up, or you just have to kind of ignore it and just like, yo, it's the internet, whatever.
Yeah.
But like on occasion, like I have to like as down to earth as I might seem, sometimes like I still have my ego creeps up because like I'm on one hand, I'm really like good at like now starting to acknowledge the things I've done, like the steps I've taken. And it's a lot of things that like the majority of people haven't done. And it's like, all right, Duncan, so like it's today of the day you want to like be that guy on like that pedestal and be like, all right, well, do you know who you're talking to? I don't want to, I can't be that guy, but like sometimes it's just like, all right, do I have to, I don't know, flex today? I don't want to do that. And
Yeah,
like
don't make me flex.
it's like I can. And like just a genuine like I've done this and this and this, and you're still on the internet talking about the 90s or whatever. It's like, I don't know. But with all the validity that has, it's like it's just it's not gonna spark the like the constructive conversation you ideally think it is. It's just gonna be a
No,
shouting match with somebody who isn't
you
going
don't even
to
know who you don't
yeah.
even know, and you're never going to meet, and you shouldn't care about, because they clearly don't care about you, and it doesn't put you in the right mindset. So anything else you wanted to do or plan to do that day probably isn't going to go so well either. The minute that when a negativity thing starts, then it's quite difficult, certainly for the day until you've slept on it.
Mhm.
It can affect everything else that you do and every conversation that you have and stuff like that, really. But on a positive one now, so we've got class dismissed now, that's
Mhm.
out. What comes next?
Ooh, yeah. What comes next? There's nothing planned, but there's no plans, but like I just ideas, because like there's always more music. Like the biggest thing I'm working on right now, and I've just been like I guess you should be hush hush, but like I'm not. Is just a project, like a full length project with track. So
Oh, wow,
yes,
go on.
this is like it started with breaking news, and we had thinking of you, and
Mm.
since then we've just been like, hey, just go back and forth, just start putting things together. And what started off as like a couple tracks became a couple more from an EP to whatever you want to consider an LP to like a mini album to something. And like we had no idea at the beginning, but like it's all like the pieces are just coming together. I've been playing more of the tracks out lately, just in like mixes or radio and like live, and like getting reactions I didn't think I was going to, like we didn't think we were going to, and just
Wow.
like, so that's kind of the next thing, which hopefully maybe next year. Like I officially don't know what it is. Like it could just be like a couple singles.
Is this something that's probably going to have to be edited out of the interview, or can we definitely go with that? Because I want to salute
Oh,
Terrence
no, you
hard
can
as fuck
completely
right now.
go with
Like, I
it. You
love
can
Terrence. I've
completely,
done a podcast with him. It's probably one of my
yeah.
favorite interviews this year because he's able to just candidly drop names like 50 Cent and Cool Herc in his
Yeah.
conversations. And, you know,
Yeah.
just like I got goosebumps now. Like, he's such a nice guy to talk to. And just like every conversation will lead to some crazy revelation, which, you know,
Mhm.
yeah, but it's all so natural. Like, you know, it's like, yeah. I don't know. Like I warm, yeah, I love Terrence. So let's salute him really fucking hard. This is
Yeah.
something that can definitely be made public.
Yeah, of course. Like I've already been talking about it. Like it's still just like a bunch of ideas. So it's not like look out for the release date or anything, but it's like we are actively working on just like so much music that something has to come out of it. Like if it's 20 years from now and it's like, hey, remember that thing we worked on back when we were young? Here it is. You know, it's going to happen because there just hasn't been anything like it, in a sense of here's a like a first a US producer, like making an album, sure, but producer and MC, like fully just kind of back and forth, like working on the full project. It isn't just like a feature here and there. Like it's wholly collaborative for me and him. Like I don't send him anything I don't think he'll work on. He won't send anything back that he doesn't feel. And at the end, we just have these all these like projects and tunes that are like us, you know, what we're feeling, a mix of like we're two different people, two separate lives, but like it's coming together in a way that we're both telling our collective story, I guess,
Mm,
in this whatever this work is going to be. So that's
wow.
like the biggest thing I'm working on, other than just like making tunes here and there. So hopefully that comes to fruition like next year at some time. But yeah,
Wow.
that's the biggest thing on my list right now, is just trying to make something. Like
Crazy. I'm
I try,
wondering where
yeah.
that would go. Would that go on hospital? Now, this is an awkward question because, you know, there's a lot of this is out of your control and there's probably
Mm,
contracts and label expectations, but you're with two super cool labels. Plus, Track
mm,
has got his own label because he did a similar project with Maverick Soul.
yeah.
So it could go on one of three labels there. And I'm sure any number of other labels would be interested in something like that as well.
Yeah. It's like the hospital team, like they've all heard most of the tunes so far, because I've just I'm still at that point where like I don't want to send this if I'm not sure about it yet, but like also like let me just dump 6 tracks at one time and see what they think. But they're all on for it. Like it's definitely a potential thing like after this. So it's probably going to be there, and like it's one of those like I don't want to compare it to these guys, but like what like the idea is trying to make a pairing that's tight knit, like Caliber and
I
DRS,
was literally thinking that.
like
I was
that.
thinking, right, I was going to butt
That's
in and I thought, let's see where
yeah,
you go with this. Yes,
because
definitely. And
it's
that, I mean, that's got to be like a dream for a producer and an MC to have that like dialogue and that vibe between each other, that, you know, like whether you're playing out live together or you're in the studio, it's just a look or an eyebrow raise and you've got like the
yeah.
shorthand and you just know, and it doesn't matter if you go in heavy, then Terrence can go in heavy, or if
Mm.
you're doing it light, like he's got the right buzz, he knows where you're going, you know where he's going, and you can just create. Then I think that's got to be like the ultimate thing for a producer, to have that vocalist, that songwriter, that brother or sister who you just know. It's almost on a telepathic level. Then I got goosebumps.
Yeah, yeah, like it's clearly not like, oh, we just want to be famous, like the famous or notoriety or whatever, because they're legends for a reason. Like, but like emulating that work ethic, that like whole like collaboration, just like understanding each other on like that kind of creative level, and
Yeah.
just making stuff you both believe in with no end result in mind, but knowing that when you two come together, like it's something special. Like that's what we've been working towards. Like when we at the beginning, it was just like I just kind of knew him a little bit, and like we had respect for each other because like of what we've both kind of accomplished. And like track is just like the experience this guy like just sitting on the couch before a gig, just like listening to him just tell these stories and all this experience is like that's helped me so much. And then from his point of view, like he's told me at least like just being like younger and seeing how things are now, like we just have that like him being around for like forever since the golden era and me being now in this new era of things and like the melding of that and just really trying to create something that encapsulates the old and the new, the his side, his style, the my style, and just like every time we make something new, things just grow together. And it's like we'll be working on something new. It's like, okay, like we know this thing now. Let's go back to this track we made like a year ago and try and make that kind of how this is. And like just that the capacity for collaboration, like that you just don't see.
Yeah.
To me, there's not a whole lot of like pairings these days of like,
No,
the producer and the MC that just like they're always working together or they're always performing together, you know,
I'm trying to
and
think. Casper and
especially,
PRS is the best example of that. Really, there are
yeah,
other ones. So there's my mind is drawing blanks, but
mm,
also there's the added North American drum and bass story there as well, and what you
yeah,
share and what you represent, and where the pair of you are right at the forefront of that as well.
mm,
So that's like a whole other exciting layer because the momentum at the moment. I mean, maybe it's different in Kansas City, but certainly, like when I talk to people like Airglow, when I talked to Craze the other day, like the appetite and the energy for drum and bass at the moment in North America is unparalleled, really. I mean, how is that from a Kansas City perspective before on a wider North
mm.
American perspective?
Like it's definitely just kind of it's a part of that. Cause like the thing about like the States is like it's just so spread out. So there's not like one unified scene. It's more like here's LA, here's San Diego, Portland, New York, Detroit, like Miami, major cities. You have like smaller ones like where I am, like that was joke about like people always come to us when they're in between the big cities. Like Bookham comes to us after he's done New York and then he's going to LA, but we still get to see him and stuff like that. So it's nice. And then you like you have like grassroots kind of things building up. Like my couple of friends started the Kansas City Rollers Club, which is all about drum and bass and stuff and like putting on a monthly. I'm like wearing the hoodie now. And they're like,
Ah,
you're wearing
cool,
our
cool.
stuff? Like, you're wearing our stuff? It's like, first of all, you got to remember, I'm just a guy. Okay. Like, I hate like showing up to a show and they're like, no, we're just so happy you're here. Like, you're on hospital and stuff. And it's like, man, like, I'm just like you with like a little bit of extra experience, or like connections. But like, so I do what I can, like, try and support them as much as possible because it's not just them and then me. It's like, we're all together, And then the grander schemes, like there's just so much more building up, but America still kind of has this thing a little bit, from my point of view at least, that no one wants to like acknowledge, but like a little bit of chip on his shoulder of like, we're American, we don't want to have to fit into the UK this and the UK sound. And you know, there's so many people who will adamantly fight against like just being respectful for the history that came before and like this isn't American, but then they're like, oh, you remember back in the world of drum and bass days and back in the 90s and all this. And like, I know that was the heyday and the golden era, but we can't all be focused on that because you can't grow
It's gone.
if
Those
our
days are
heads in the
gone.
bomb. Yeah, they're gone. But like what's come since then is standing on the shoulders of those days. But we don't want to like discount what's here now for that. So there's just a lot of like fighting, I don't know, a little bit of back and forth, like not too vocal about it, but the people, it's egos. It's more of that. It's like, oh, they're not acknowledging me, but I'm so good. It's like, well, are you really that good? And like, come on. But for the
I know we're getting into slightly
yeah,
uncomfortable territory for you
I
there,
know.
I think, really, isn't it? I liken it to rock music. So I came from rock music. My dad brought me up on it. And when I got into rock music, like when I realized I found my own identity as a music fan was in the 90s. And I remember my dad like pointing out, it's like, yo, this is where it's all come from. All of these bands that you're listening to from Seattle all sound like Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath. I didn't believe them at the time, but they really did. But we're at that stage with rock now. We're 30 years deep into jungle. when bands like Green Day came about, did you see the set? Well, right, you wouldn't have seen because you were like 15 years younger than me, so you wouldn't have been paying attention to stuff. But right, the Sex Pistols or other punk bands, the Buzzcocks or anything like that,
Mhm.
didn't bemoan or begrudge Green Day for taking punk to a different level and taking punk like it was just it's a generational shift. The same, come when glam rock came out, like all of the kind of 60s rockers didn't, I'm sure there was egos and like, I don't really like the way that this music is going, but it's another generation. You can't stop that evolution. The foundations are there, everybody's standing on each other's shoulders in that way, and respect must be paid. But evolution is the most important thing, and especially when the ticket buyers and the audience are people in there, they're the young people. They want to see people that they relate to. They might want to see a legend, but that's probably a little bit later down their musical pathway. They want to see people who they relate to, the same age as them, who represent them in exactly the same way that we were talking about right at the start, really, in that way. You can't just have, no matter how good it was at any one point, it has to evolve. And sometimes it's a good evolution, sometimes it's a little bit stagnant, or it might feel like it's going backwards, but it has to have that development. Or otherwise, you're just stopping it. And that's when, and that's you can't stop a culture, then, really, can you?
No, yeah. And like just to kind of be like clear, like those are like those people who are like kind of like, oh, I wish it was the old days, are very much in most cases, like with everything else, like the vocal minority, right? Like they're the ones in the comments you might not see at a show kind of thing, because like, I mean, they're in a different part of their life, but still like you remember those eras for like nostalgia and like how it made you feel back then. And that's great. But like as a whole, like the US scene is super supportive, like very tight knit, no matter how like geographically spread out. So it's like with me just kind of getting to know everybody within like the last 2 or 3 years, it's like I can call anyone from like another city and just have like a conversation, just talk about what's going on there, what they're seeing, like how can I help from whatever like
Mm.
standpoint I'm in, things like that. And just like help, because like everyone, like we only have, like we can only gain from helping each other, like instead of being competitive with like scenes, and like within certain scenes there's like promoters want to do this and that. It's like, again, like you're not serving the music, you're not serving the culture, so it's like you're like, what are you here for? And if you're serving the music and the culture and the people who like have created and are holding that up, like you're going to be met with nothing but love. Like that's what helped me kind of be accepted within like the UK scene. It's like, it's why so many people think I'm from London until they hear my voice and they're like, oh, you are American. We won't hold that against you or whatever. The jokes come. But it's like, it's still to this day, it's like, oh, you sound like you're from here and like you get it. And it's like, that's because I care like about the history and everything. Like I'm not like stuck back there, but like I want to understand where things come from, so like I can be better immersed in the thing which I'm so geographically separated from. And like for better or worse, I do want to be accepted, yet for my own like merit, like I
Mm.
don't sound wholly like the sound here, but like you hear it in my sound, but with like a little twist, a little something that makes me unique. It doesn't have to be anything big, It's just, here's what makes me me, with respect to everything that came before. And that's all you got to lead with. Just lead with respect and like love for the thing you're trying to be a part of, and you will be accepted. It
Oh,
takes time, but yeah.
yeah. I think you've given me goosebumps yet again there, man. I think that's a perfect place to kind of bring our conversation to a nice
uh,
climax there and just to end on a really positive note. And I think that's beautiful. And that does sum up exactly really, the creative approach and how we engage with this culture really. And if you are coming from a place of love, and you are coming from a place of authenticity and happy to be in those troughs and to go on that journey and push yourself really and explore it and have respect for the past and excitement for the future, only good things can happen. Like,
yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. That's where we're at really, isn't it?
It's like, yeah,
Brilliant.
that's it. Yeah, like it seems like so trivial. I don't know, but like once you come around to that, like you like we're here because of the music. Like we love drum and bass, jungle, everything that encompasses. Just serve that. Serve what you love, Don't make it about you, but just know that you're a part of this thing, that's
Yeah.
bigger than you. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's amazing. On that really cool, inspiring note, I will leave you to your Airbnb and best of luck with the rest of your trip and the rest of your summer, man. Thank you.
And thank you. It's always like love to talk to you, man.
Amazing. Amazing.